You're listening to Austinpreneur, a podcast highlighting Austin startups, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Discover the importance of your network, meet the people supporting your journey, and connect with the community making it all happen. To learn how we do it, visit capitalfactory.com.
Welcome, everyone, to the Austinpreneur podcast, where we discuss everything startups and entrepreneurs in Texas. I'm your host today, Josh Baer, and I'm joined by Molly Cain, founder of Gov City, and most recently, Director of Venture at Homeland Security, DHS. Molly, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So first, we've known each other for a long time. Molly was actually one of the first people that I met in Dallas and who really introduced me to the Dallas startup scene. So before you got involved in the government and military and Homeland Security, how did you get involved in startups? Why were you even the right person to go do that to begin with?
Oh, goodness. I don't know if anybody feels right about doing it, and we do it anyways, right? I spent about 12 years in corporate America, running executive communications strategy. I got my MBA, so I was taken a little bit more seriously. But I walked into my boss's office one day, and I think it was 2013, and I received just this very benign but annoying email. I walked into my boss's office and I said, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but it's not this. And basically dropped the mic and I left my job. I joined Dallas Entrepreneur Center. I was one of the first, I think, less than 10 people at the Dallas Entrepreneur Center. And that was
number one partner in Dallas.
Yes, exactly. So it's fun that we're sitting here. But that was in the early days when it was at the Soft Layer building across from the Maverick Stadium. So Trey Bowles took pity on me, gave me an office, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do and met a couple of founders and joined their team. So launched my first startup with them and spent about 18 months with them learning all the ins and outs of fundraising and how stressful but how exciting and fun it is in that entrepreneurial space. And I then met the Tech Wildcatters crew, and they were hiring an executive director. So I spent about 2 years running that organization.
And Tech Wildcatters is an accelerator in Dallas that probably worked with more companies in Dallas than anybody else.
Exactly, yeah. A portfolio of a little bit over 100 and an amazing community. And it was at its peak when I joined them. So I got a ride on the rocket ship, essentially, and had a great time.
Awesome. And then, so how did you get connected to Homeland Security?
So because of the Tech Wildcatters name, and we were pretty well known in the Texas space at the time, Homeland Security was sending a delegation of about 8 executives into Austin, actually. And we had previously run a pilot for them, their very first Accelerator pilot for a first.
Was that the first responder one?
Yep.
That was so cool.
Merge.
I thought that was a great program.
It was so much fun. We were really supported by the Undersecretary of Science and Technology at the time, Dr. Brothers. And we had a great time. And we learned that we know nothing about what the government is doing and what they need until you truly sit down with them. And I know that you guys have been finding that out a lot frequently. So really enjoyed that and met some great contacts and received a text, and somebody asked me to come and pitch this delegation of Homeland Security. And after about 2 hours of that conversation in an Austin hotel having breakfast with them, they asked me if I wanted to be a Fed. And I said no. And 3 weeks later, they flew down and convinced me.
Yeah. Did they say, do you want to be a Fed? I always hear you call it a Govy.
I call it Govy. They asked me to be a Fed, but it was not compelling that morning because I was the one talking. But when they came back, they took me out to a Tex-Mex dinner, which can convince me of a lot of things. And
point noted.
Yeah, they sat there across the table from me, and I will not forget how mission-driven I began to feel. By the end of dinner, I would have signed on to anything that they were doing. It was their vision and their goal to connect the startup ecosystem, the venture capital community, and everything beyond was really compelling.
I'll tell you, as I've gotten the pleasure of getting to meet so many incredible individuals that serve in our armed forces and others in our government through this process, it's been a little bit of a surprise to me because I'm the jeans and t-shirt guy. And I'm not really known as somebody that's big on the pomp and circumstance. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Yep, you did.
But there's something about these military people, and they show up in their uniforms and they do a really good job making things sound really, really important and making you feel really important. And like this, and it is really important. I guess that's probably why. But like, man, you know, it takes you away, you know, like, and it's been really that way for me too. It's really exciting to be part of it and feel like, wow, this stuff really matters. Like I thought making money mattered too. And I can see why this is big business, but there's higher stakes here. There
really is. And have you gotten a coin yet?
I have, yeah.
It's a really neat moment when when you meet someone who knows how important that one discussion was, or the relationship that you guys are fostering and building. It gives you goosebumps. I recently received one at the FBI, and I treasure those more than some of the other gifts that I've ever gotten in the corporate world. And, you know, corporate world gives pretty good gifts. So.
Well, I'm not in the military, and the idea of a coin, this is of something I've been introduced to, which is that many senior leaders in the government and the military will have a personal coin made. President Trump has one. I hear it's actually one of the largest coins ever made. But all of them have these coins.
Staying away from that one.
And they will as a way they honor service members that they meet, as well as occasionally, you know, people in the civilian world, is they will present you with one of these coins. And the story that I always hear is like the part of the challenge is they're out getting drinks. Somebody can whip out their coin, and whoever has the highest ranking coin,
you better not be putting that one down, because I don't have one with me. Okay.
And so, but just to make your point, while I've never been challenged for drinks, now that we do have so many military people around here, I actually do carry in my pocket most days the best coin I got, and it's Ash Carter's SecDef coin.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's great. And it is actually not the largest coin I've ever seen. But it's very classy and it's really impressive. And then I also have Heather Wilson's coin from the Secretary of the Air Force. She has a super classy coin. It's really nice.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so got a little collection going.
You always do have to have one with you when you hang out with these guys, but they so you know the feeling of being around it. And I know that my federal colleagues, they do understand the importance and the gravity of what they work on, but they don't understand how important it is for those of us who pause to contribute. Yeah. And that's been a really special interaction that I've gotten. And you too.
Yeah. I agree, that is. And so I'm sure that this will by no means compare, but I carry another coin in my pocket for special occasions. I don't use it every day. But as part of all this happening, we developed a Capital Factory coin.
I love it.
And not that we're the first to go do that. And I've never coined anybody on the podcast. So this is our first opportunity, but we have a Capital Factory coin.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's got on one side, of course, the Capital Factory gear. And on the other side, it's got a picture of our crazy robot. And it says at the top, the center of gravity for entrepreneurs in Texas. And at the bottom, the phrase that I've learned from many of the other coins that I've received, presented for excellence. And so you can't see it on the podcast, but it's a really cool coin. And
it is very pretty.
And it's something we take really seriously. I actually keep a list of, I know every single person that's gotten one of these coins, and I'd love to give one to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you guys, I know y'all can't see it, but it's gorgeous. Thank you, Josh.
Great.
Wait, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. The fact that you've created a coin here at Capital Factory tells me that you know you're onto something, that you know you're building something special. I have never been to an accelerator with a coin, and I used to run one. What do you love most about engaging this, and how did that even happen?
Well, as you said, I had the honor of receiving first, one coin and a few others, and it is such a wonderful tradition. I think it's really special. It's, the coin it's real weight to it. It's meaningful. It feels special. It's not something that just goes to anybody. You're chosen when you get a coin. It means something, and it's a really special experience. And as that happened, and I received coins, someone suggested to me, maybe it was Craig Cummings, he said, hey, you should make a Capital Factory coin. It was somebody that was a vet. And I looked at him like, what? We can do that? Like,
we're allowed?
That's not disrespectful. Like, we can make a coin? He's like, yeah, you can totally do that. And I just thought that was the greatest idea in the world, both, to the honor of being able to do it, and then really from the primary reason of being able to reciprocate, to being able to, give a coin back if I were to receive one. And it's been really great like that. But then what I've learned is it's just a great tradition by itself. And as while we primarily present them to people connected to the military and defense, it's also been even just a great way to recognize even really valuable team members and employees. And it's just a great tradition.
I agree. That's really cool. Yeah. Who have you coined? Do you have, who's your favorite one?
Who's my favorite one? That's a great question.
But they're all going to be listening and waiting for you to call their name. So maybe
I know, right? Maybe I'll have to defer on that one. But I've given out quite a few coins. I think probably, honestly, I think Heather Olsen, Secretary of the Air Force, was probably one of the best ones. Just the whole way it all happened. It was really special. It was special to have her visit. She was launching AFWorks here, and it was a really great environment.
Before I even knew you, when I took my first tour at Capitol Factory, I noticed an interesting seal on the ground. What was that?
That must be the presidential seal. Don't get us busted. I don't think we're allowed to do that, actually. But there is a presidential seal on the ground. Well, that's
good, because my show is called Troublemakers, so that made you fit in perfectly.
So one of our first we've had a lot of great visitors and guests here. And so much so when we talk about being the center of gravity, that's what we're really talking about is as gravity, it sucks people in. And now it's working incredibly. In the past year, we've had Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, the Secretary of the Army, the Secretary of the Air Force, the Prince of the Netherlands, the Prince of Norway, the founder of Reddit. It's like every month there's some world leader coming through here. But it all started with President Obama back in 2013, and he was our first really high-profile visitor. And true to the center of gravity, we didn't invite him. He decided he wanted to come. He wanted to come to Austin, and he visited an elementary school. He visited Capitol Factory, an incubator, an accelerator, and he visited a larger company called Applied Materials. And through that, first of all, we had the White House advance team, which I never knew what an advanced team was before that. But the advanced team are they're the badasses that go ahead and make sure everything's ready for the president to get there and plan out his trips. And incredible group of individuals to work with in any case, as you can imagine. And they helped us prepare for all of it. And in doing so, they taught us, not intentionally, but by accident, they taught us how to give a really good tour to the president. And in that process, and then the second thing is when the president visits, there's a real halo effect. It makes a noise, and lots of people who come later will just want to go do whatever the president did, especially government officials. And so the combination of those two things was we suddenly had this new skill that we knew how to give a presidential tour, and we just kept giving the presidential tour to everybody else that came. And really, I think that's been a great asset of ours, and it's become one of our secret weapons. Is on the outside, it looks like we just know how to give a good tour. But for us, the tour is actually a way to get startups in front of really big influencers. And so when President Obama came, 5 startups got to pitch the president on their idea. And not only is it cool to get to pitch the president,
that's like Austin, Texas,
in Austin, Texas. That's that in itself is kind of a life-changing experience, something you'll always remember. But you can imagine when you pitch the president, there's a lot of other people watching. And that's really incredible exposure and really meaningful to the companies that get to participate. And then these days, you can imagine, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple's coming. Well, who gets to present to them? Well, who's got an app in the App Store, right? That's who should be showing something to Tim Cook. Satya Nadella from Microsoft comes. All right, who's got software that can work with the Microsoft stack, that could sell into their customers, that could be part of their solutions? And those turn into real opportunities. And that's been a great thing coming out of it. But it all traces back to that one first really incredible visit.
So you said something very specific that I wanted to catch on, is the fact that you did give a presidential tour to an actual president. So it's like saying NASA takes moonshots. But the interesting part of it is your next sentence is that now you give everyone the presidential tour. And one of the reasons I think the government is really interested in being not only in Austin, Texas, but specifically at home in Capitol Factory, and that's Army Futures, DIU is here, I know National Geospatial, all these guys and ladies, they're here because there's not a hierarchy, and it's more of a collaborative environment.
It's a melting pot.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. Yeah, it's something that they don't get in their current workplace.
Okay, I want to turn it back on you. So you're coming out of 2 years in Homeland Security.
Yes.
Being the disruptor, the troublemaker in DC in Homeland Security. Not the kind of place you'd think they'd be inviting disruptors or troublemakers, right?
Correct.
Probably one of the more conservative places to be.
Yes.
What did you learn? What were you expecting? What was a surprise?
Oh, well, they can warn you all day long about the red tape, and you're still ill-prepared for how much red tape there is. What I didn't expect is how much empathy and compassion I would begin to gain for innovators, disruptors, even just a person trying to get their job done in the government. It's very, very difficult. So in a lot of cases, they either move on or they lose their willpower. They lose the ambition that they walked in with, or they feel trapped and controlled in certain ways. So it was very, very fun for the past 2 years finding what my colleagues and I like to call foxhole allies. Anybody that hasn't lost the faith, but is just waiting for a tribe to join. So we did spend about 2 years building an amazing community, and which I'm excited to bring back to Capital Factory with me very soon. I did learn what failure feels like a little bit more than anything I've ever worked in. And I learned a completely different type of trying. And by that, I mean sometimes finding the route to start, whereas in a startup, you have nothing stopping you from starting. Maybe it'll go awry the very minute you start, but the fact that you can start and you can pivot, you can move and you can change and you can make decisions, and everybody, there's of course hierarchy when it matters, the CEO, fundraising, that kind of thing. But when it truly matters in a startup, which I always enjoyed a lot in the accelerator space as well, is the flattened organization when it really, really matters. They don't get to experience that very often, if at all, in the government space. It completely depends on the leader, and there aren't enough leaders right now, in my personal opinion, pro sports opinion. There's not enough innovative, or at least innovative-friendly leadership at levels where it actually matters. So you learn the value of a leader, of a manager, of the structure of a team a lot more in the government, because it literally could mean that you never start. And that is the most aggravating thing for the really cool ideas.
It's one of the things that was so great about Ash Carter, not to speak to anybody else since then. I just don't have the direct experience necessarily working with some of the others, but I did with him. And he was the champion for change and for innovation, and had the authority and could articulate it and could inspire people to follow through with that. And that's
Absolutely.
part of how we got DIU. Yeah. But it takes that. We need those kinds of leaders, and there aren't that many of them. Not everybody gets it.
There aren't that many. One of the things that I'm most proud about, and it is in motion right now, is a leadership accelerator of sorts. And, I'm here at Capital Factory today to talk about Gov City because it's a miniature version of that concept. But in Homeland, I pitched it, and there's some really cool opportunities for federal employees to be able to pitch an idea and receive funding regardless of who, what, where, when, why. And it passed through 3 different gates of funding, and it's still alive, so I'm super excited about it. But the purpose was, let's give at least the basic amount of innovation training and creative workshop training to every single person who is given authority and decision-making power, which would be a 1415 SES. And I know now I'm using Gov codes, but
so kind of that's their rank in the government.
The ranking, yeah. And anybody that has the authority and capability to make decisions on behalf of the organization should, at the very minimum, be able to appreciate new ideas and not let brand new ideas suffer the fate of what they wish the really bad ideas went through. So that is one of the greatest problems in the government I noticed, is the brand new shiny ideas are the biggest victims. Yeah. So this is an effort to teach leaders a little bit more about how to take care of them.
All right, I want to talk to you about being a woman in tech and innovation in DC, in the military and the government complex, because that's something you and I have talked about a lot as well in tech.
I have bullied you on it a little.
And
yes.
And
out of love.
And you, as much as we're dear friends, you keep our feet to the fire and keep us honest on what we're trying to do it.
You are. I noticed it.
And I love that you do, but I know it's something you're really passionate about. I know it's something I'm really passionate about and we really care about, is diversity and inclusion,
yes.
is making places accessible and breaking down some of these walls and doing it, one, because it's the right thing to do, but two, because it actually produces better results. It makes better companies and better solutions and better teams. But I got to imagine, coming from where I knew you before and going into this, that had to be really difficult because that could not have been nearly as progressive as an environment as you were used to. So what was that like? And how did you survive? How did you make it work?
I don't know if I truly survived. Well, so startup world, as you and I know, notoriously, and it is so much better than years and years before. I think about Marissa Mayer and Sheryl Sandberg and what Beth Comstock, what were their experiences? It has to be 10 times worse. But startup and venture capital world is notoriously difficult for women. And it's been really cool to see all the changes. And I have to applaud you for all of that. And you certainly have. I'm
glad I got that on recording.
Yes. You have battled my bullying quite well. And in the federal world, I didn't expect it because, the cookie cutter statement and what we all assume is the government is fair and this and that and diverse and all these rules and regulations and things. But that doesn't protect the bias and that hidden agenda of many, even if they don't even know that they carry it around.
Unconscious bias.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So when we see that in some of the good old boys club, things like that, but it was probably the most fierce environment from that perspective because emotions especially are not welcome in a military or a government setting. And one of the greatest gifts that women often have is having emotions, which makes us fantastic collaborators, connectors, relationship builders, all the things. But that is not a natural skill set that they're used to and that they appreciate. So that was difficult. And then there is really, because the system is the most difficult process that anybody has ever encountered, your trusted network is really how a lot of people get things done. And if your trusted network is a bunch of men, then the new woman on the street, she's a mysterious alien that you can't collaborate with, that kind of thing. So it was interesting, but and I have to go back to a lot of the conversations that you and I have had. And, my first startup, Glass Heel, was focused on getting more women in the boardroom. And at the time I was working in a bank and I had no women to look up to on that level. And I really realized, even through discussions with you and others, and realizing I wouldn't have my career without men involved. And some of my favorite mentors are men. And that's not something I should hide. And by being too supportive of only women initiatives is counterintuitive. So a lot of the things that I've tried to work on is, reminding women who are coming up that they do need to know the Joshes of the world. They need to know all of the men around them because that's 50% of the workforce and part of their career. So I've kind of softened a little bit on women power in the workplace because we do need to work together.
Have you ever heard of a fairly new organization called Him for Her?
I have, but it
needs to be on your radar.
Okay.
It's actually a Henry Crown fellow of mine named Jocelyn Mangan, and it was her project coming out of her Aspen Fellowship, and it is exactly aligned with Glass Heels. It's all about getting male advocates from boards to help mentor and pipeline women onto boards.
I love it.
Definitely something should be on your radar. I'll make sure to connect you.
I don't know if we will eventually want to edit this out, but I have what I like to call the OWG board, old white guy board. And I love and they're not all old white guys, by the way, but I love learning from those who spend time with the most biased people so that they can coach me how to interact with someone who will translate tears differently or will hear me make a pitch for way too long. And at what point do they check out of that conversation kind of thing? So they give me coaching on how to interact better with their kind.
Yeah. I know we're sidetracking all over the place here, but it's funny you saying that makes me think of something that happened just recently. It was a month or so ago, and I was on a business call. I'm very fortunate that most of the people I'm on business calls with are also friends of mine and people I know really well. And it was two people I was very close with. And and that call, they told me something that really, really hurt my feelings. It wasn't something they said, but it was something that they were telling me that it was one of those, like, it's one of the situations where you feel misunderstood. It's like, that's like the worst thing, right? Yeah. You're like, no, that wasn't what I was trying to do. And it brought me to tears, and I was really upset about it. And they it was a phone call, but they could tell I was crying on the phone. And after that call, I thought about it, and I hung up, and I was telling my wife about it or something, and it didn't bother me at all that I was crying on the phone. Like I was really upset about it, like, and like I said, it's not something that happens all the time or something, but like, and I thought about it. I was like, I've been in these situations before. And anytime I've been in a business situation with a woman who's cried, she's apologized to me.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I felt no need to apologize. And that was one of my first kind of, I was like, you know what? Like, that's just an example right there of like, I can cry and it's okay, but women feel like they need to apologize or something. And I've found that to be, I've seen over and over. And even now, anytime that comes up, I feel this need to be like, you don't have to apologize. Like, like,
please don't apologize.
Yeah. Like whatever, like,
I have a colleague who told me he has a wife who keeps him in check. And he said he saw me cry one day and he knows exactly why. And he reminded me, he said, if your tears are anything like my wife's, I know you aren't sad. You are furious. And that sometimes is way worse. So a lot of guys mistake it for a weakness, but it is that the woman is so frustrated and is getting there. But yeah, it's a new introduction into the workplace still. And a lot of guys handle it really well and other guys don't. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that's about all the time we have for today, but thank you so much for coming to visit again and sitting down to chat with us about startups and innovation and the government.
Of course.
For our listeners, if you want to learn more about Gov City, you can follow them at Gov City HQ, and you can follow Molly at Molly Cain, MOLLYCAIN. And as always, you can follow us at Austinpreneur. That's entrepreneur, but with Austin instead, or email us with any of your suggestions at podcast@capitalfactory.com. And that wraps it up, and we will all see you next time.
You've been listening to Austinpreneur. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.